Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into some truly significant global developments that really demand a closer look.
Absolutely.
We've got two main themes we want to unpack. First, recent key statements from Russian President Putin about the war in Ukraine and also the Middle East. And then we'll pivot to something equally important, the remarkable evolution of drone warfare. We'll focus specifically on these Duran 2 drones.
It's a deep dive that really shows how interconnected all these things are, doesn't it?
It really does.
We'll be looking at how statements from leaders, shape perceptions, potential outcomes, and at the same time, we're exploring these rapid tech shifts happening on the ground.
Right.
What's fascinating, I think, is just how fast military innovation can redefine the whole tactical landscape.
Exactly. So our mission today is to sort of sift through the details, pull out the crucial insights, and basically give you a shortcut to being well-informed on these complex issues.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this first part. Our first segment takes us to the recent press conference Russian President Putin held with global media. Some things he said really grabbed attention, maybe even caused some alarm.
Indeed. A central theme Russian President Putin really emphasized was framing the conflict in Ukraine in a much broader context.
Okay.
He described it less as just Russia-Ukraine and more as a wider conflict between Russia and NATO, led by the U.S.
Right, sort of elevating the stakes.
Precisely. And he made a point of saying Russia is continuously improving its military and its offensive capabilities, signaling, they're in this for the long haul.
And he talked about NATO's military spending, didn't he? What was his take on that specifically?
Yeah, he did. He acknowledged NATO is spending more, which he said creates additional risks. But then he dismissed their rearmament as, quote, not a threat to Russia.
Not a threat, despite the spending.
That's what he claimed. He argued Russia has the necessary defensive capabilities and is self-sufficient for its security. It sounds like projecting strength, essentially saying Russia will counter all these threats.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for many, this idea of a third world war. We saw some strong reactions to that in Western media. What did Russian President Putin actually say could trigger something like that?
That was a key moment. A significant point was his warning that if Germany were to supply Taurus cruise missiles to Ukraine, that specific action would provoke a direct military confrontation between Russia and the West.
A direct confrontation. He was that specific.
Very specific. He says such a step would mean Germany, under Chancellor Friedrich Merz apparently, would enter the conflict as a belligerent. His words were nothing short of dragging the Federal Republic into direct armed conflict with the Russian Federation.
Wow. That is a stark warning, setting a clear red line there.
Absolutely.
But what about ways out? Did he mention any openness to dialogue, say with Germany or maybe with Ukrainian President Zelensky?
Well, yes and no. He did say he was ready to speak with Chancellor Merz if contact is initiated. We are always open to this, he said.
Okay.
But, and this is a big but, he immediately rejected Germany as a potential mediator in the Ukraine conflict.
Why, if he's open to talking?
Because, he argued, Russia doesn't see Berlin as neutral. He cited Germany's support for Ukraine tank deliveries, claims about German tech being used in Russia, like in Kursk. So open to direct talk, maybe, but not mediation from someone seen as non-neutral.
Got it. And regarding Ukrainian President Zelensky, any possibility of a meeting there?
He said a meeting is possible, but only, and this is crucial, at the final stage of negotiations.
The final stage? To do what?
His words were to put an end to the discussions, not, as he put it, sitting there and dividing something endlessly. He also cast some doubt on President Zelensky's legitimacy, which adds another layer of difficulty for any talks.
Right, setting preconditions and questioning the other side. Okay. Moving beyond Ukraine now, Russian President Putin also talked about the escalating conflict in the Middle East. What role did he suggest Russia might play there?
He offered Russia as a potential mediator between Tehran and Tel Aviv. He called it a delicate question, but seemed quite confident, saying such a solution can generally be found.
And why Russia? What's the basis for that offer?
Well, he pointed to Russia's long-standing policy in the Middle East, maintaining this fragile balance. They have historically warm relations with Israel, but also strong economic and military ties with Iran.
That is a unique position.
It is. And Moscow believes this positions them as a potentially strong mediator, maybe one that others couldn't be.
Were there any, concrete examples of cooperation already in place that might help that?
Yes, actually. Russian President Putin confirmed an agreement with Israel's leadership, specifically about ensuring the safety of over 200 Russian specialists at the Bushehr nuclear power plant in Iran, which Russia built.
Okay, so there's existing communication there.
Exactly. He also mentioned Russia could continue working with Iran on its civilian nuclear program and, interestingly, emphasized that Iran's underground enrichment facilities are still intact.
What about military cooperation with Iran? That's obviously a big topic. Did he address providing weapons, especially given the tensions with Israel?
He noted that military ties with Iran have deepened since 2022, and they signed that strategic partnership agreement back in January.
Right.
However, when he was asked directly about giving Iran modern weapons, specifically for defense against Israeli strikes, Russian President Putin stated that this strategic partnership agreement does not include that kind of military cooperation.
So drawing a line there, despite the broader partnership.
Seems like it. Maintaining that delicate balance, perhaps.
Okay, let's shift gears now. A different, but wow, equally crucial development, the rapidly evolving world of drone warfare. Specifically, these Russian Geran-2 drones are making headlines with some new, pretty concerning capabilities. What are we actually seeing?
Yeah, this is an area moving incredibly fast. And the impact is, well, stark. We see these Geran-2 Kamikaze drone attacks on Ukrainian cities really intensify. There was a recent incident in Odessa, June 20th, caused significant damage, evacuation.
And the numbers are going up too, right?
That's the alarming part.
Yeah.
Ukrainian intelligence is warning that these attacks could increase from, say, hundreds potentially to thousands of Gerans per night. That's a massive potential scale up.
Thousands per night. That's staggering. So what makes these drones the Geran-2, which is the Russian version of the Iranian Shahed 136, what makes them so adaptable and, frankly, more dangerous now?
Well, the key is just continuous modernization. They started out, relatively simple, light UAVs, two-stroke engine, made that distinctive lawnmower sound.
Right, I remember hearing about that sound.
Exactly. But they've undergone major modifications since then. Things like black stealth coatings to make them harder to see, new types of warheads too, thermobaric charges for hitting fortified buildings, even cluster munitions to increase the damage radius.
So more lethal payloads and harder to spot. What about how they fly? Speed, maneuverability?
Big upgrades there too. More advanced versions are now being seen with turbofan engines.
Turbofans, like jets.
Sort of, yeah. Much more powerful than the old engines.
Yeah.
So while the basic ones flew around maybe 190 kilometers per hour, these improved versions are estimated to reach speeds up to 500 kilometers per hour.
500? Wow.
Yeah, and carrying a substantial warhead still. That speed increase, plus apparently they make a different sound now, more of a piercing howl instead of the lawnmower buzz. It just makes them significantly harder to detect and shoot down. Less reaction time for defenses.
Okay, faster, stealthier.
Yeah.
What about making them tougher? Harder to actually bring down if you do spot them?
Yes, that's another key improvement. Armor. Reports indicate Russian forces are protecting the motor compartments now with an armored sheet. Apparently, it can't be penetrated by small arms fire.
Ah.
And they've relocated the fuel tanks. They used to be in the wings. Now they're inside the main body.
So what does that mean for shooting them down?
It means just hitting the wing, which might have worked before, isn't enough anymore. You really have to aim precisely at the aileron, the little control flap on the wing, or the engine area itself. Makes the whole interception task much harder.
And maybe the most, let's say, intriguing or perhaps worrying development is this talk of artificial intelligence. What do we know about AI being integrated?
Yeah, that's a big one. There are reports of processors, specifically an NVIDIA Jetson AI chip, being found in drone wreckage.
An AI chip. What would that be used for?
Most likely for machine vision, allowing the drone to see and navigate autonomously.
So it wouldn't need GPS or satellite signals?
Potentially, yes. If this gets widely implemented, it could give the drones autonomous vision, making them much less reliant on those external satellite systems. And that satellite dependence, that's been a major weakness, an Achilles heel for many UAVs.
Right. Jamming signals has been a key defense.
It's exactly. Something like 36% of drones shot down back in May were reportedly vulnerable because of navigation issues. If they achieve true satellite independence, well, that would significantly increase the number of successful hits getting past air defenses. It's a potential game changer.
And it's not just Russia working on this?
No, reports suggest Germany is also working on similar AI-based navigation tech for drones. Seems like a direction things are heading globally.
So it's not just the drone hardware itself getting better, the tactics are evolving too. What new strategies are being used to make them more effective?
Right. Beyond the tech upgrades, tactics are being refined. Many drones still fly super low, using riverbeds, terrain masking to avoid radar.
Classic approach.
Yeah, but a new tactic has apparently emerged. Gerin 2 stopping at high altitudes, beyond the range of anti-aircraft guns, and then doing a rapid dive onto the target.
Dive bomb.
Essentially. Now, that stabilization phase before the dives might be short, maybe not affecting vulnerability to heavy machine guns much, but the aim is clearly to improve strike accuracy from higher ups, maybe safer altitudes for the drone's approach. Adds complexity for defenders again.
And I heard something about drones working together, like in packs.
That's right. There's video evidence showing larger Gerin drones being accompanied by several smaller drones. And near borders, or the front lines, they're even adding extra weapons.
What kind of weapons?
Well, Gerins are often seen flying with Lancet drones. These are smaller Kamikaze drones, designed specifically to hit things like tanks and artillery, with a shorter range, maybe 40 kilometers or so.
So a combined air attack.
Exactly. And when Lancets are spotted with Gerins, it often signals an immediate threat to air defense units nearby, because those are priority targets for the Lancets. It's a coordinated tactic.
This rapid evolution, the tech, the tactics, it paints a really clear picture. What does this tell us about the future of warfare? Where are things heading with these UAV systems?
Well, their role is just expected to grow significantly. It's not just supplemental anymore. Russia's been using Gerins for over 3 years, making them independently for half that time. That shows real commitment.
Right.
We're seeing drones gradually replacing older missile systems for certain jobs. And the sheer speed of adaptation, drones evolving to counter new defenses, that underscores a fundamental shift in how war is fought. It's constant change, constant evolution of threats.
A continuous cycle of measure and countermeasure in the air. So how is Ukraine responding to all this, and what does it mean more broadly?
Ukraine reported impressive success rates, shooting down 82% of enemy drones in May. They're clearly developing innovative defenses, interceptor drones, AI-controlled robotic gun systems, trying to find cost-effective solutions.
But it's a challenge.
A huge challenge. President Zelensky has been very clear about the critical need for allied help, for timely funding for these new developments. He stresses, that UAVs aren't just their problem now. It's a future issue that's likely to affect conflicts everywhere. And the fact that Russia now has its own Gerin 2 production line, regardless of whether Iran keeps supplying them or not, it just suggests we're going to see a lot more of these Shahed 136 clones and similar systems out there.
Raises huge questions about defense adaptation globally.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive has really given us a glimpse into just how dynamic things are right now, from those high-level political statements shaping geopolitics, right down to the cutting edge of military tech redefining the battlefield.
It really brings up a crucial question, doesn't it? If these relatively low-cost, rapidly evolving drones can seriously challenge sophisticated, expensive air defense systems, what does that actually mean for the global balance of power, for military strategy in the years ahead?
A question with no easy answers.
Definitely something to keep watching closely.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.